in this field.
我们有这样的这个近水楼台先得月能够邀请到这个 Dr. Lee 因为他的家人都在我们教会里面这是我们和
we are so privileged because they attend our church and we get to hear him.
我们感谢主的恩典。我前面我就不再多说了。我相信大家刚才已经看了这个昆虫，已经非常有兴致。我相信下面的讲座呢就更有意思。
So I'm going to let him have the time, and as you play with his insects just now, I'm sure this lecture is going to be more interesting.
我们相信，当我们再来认真的探索这个昆虫世界的那个奥秘的时候，我们就知道上帝的创造是何等的伟大和奇妙。
So we pray that through this study of the amazing anatomy and life of these insects, so we can learn the creator, the maker who created these creatures.
我们今天接下来呢，我们开讲座之前，我们先一起来做一个祷告。
So before we start our lecture, we'd like to have a word of prayer.
慈爱的天父，我们感谢赞美你。
Our dear Heavenly Father, we praise and thank you.
你是我们的创造主。
You are our creator.
你的创造何等奇妙可畏。
Your creatures are amazing.
当我们在探索这个自然界的奇妙的时候，我们就知道你是何等伟大的神。
When we explore the amazing nature around us, we learn about our Creator, who is the God Almighty.
求你借着今天我们晚上的一个讲座，让我们更认识你，更认识你更深。
Through this lecture, we pray that you help us learn more about you.
求你特别祝福我们尊敬的李博士，求你与他同在使他的内心里面这个有力量。
Lord, may you be with our Professor Lee as he presents the lecture.
我们将祷告，奉主耶稣基督圣名。
As we pray in the name of Jesus.
Amen. Amen. 好，我们再次热烈掌声欢迎李博士给我们做讲座。
谢谢。
Give him a hand.
Would anyone have an issue if I speak entirely in English? Okay. All right. So, very good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here. And this is the first time actually doing an outreach in a church. So, I have done outreach in schools, but never in a church before. So, what I'm going to do is I would first introduce you to insects. That is probably going to take at least 30 minutes or even more, depending on how fast I go and depending on your expression on the face. And I'm going to adjust accordingly to my talk. And subsequently, I'm going to talk about a very interesting subject about insects, that is insect reproductive behavior. Okay, so now, without much ado, my name is Chow-Yang Lee. I am an entomologist. I specialize in urban entomology, and I study insects that are important in the urban environment. Okay, so how do I become an entomologist? Essentially, when I was in my primary school, I want to be a historian. Yeah, and when I was a teenager, I want to be a singer. Yeah, but there were a lot of, obviously objection from Asian parents, who would think that, oh, you shouldn't be a singer. Singer's lifetime is extremely short. So when I went to university, I took specialization in biology, and it was the first semester that I encountered invertebrate zoology. And there was a professor who basically inspired me to study insects. And from there on, the next day, I told myself, this is what I'm going to do in life. And that's it. Okay, so what is entomology? Essentially, entomology is the study of insects. Okay, so it can be morphology of insects, it can be physiology, it can be behavior of insects, and so on. It is actually a branch of zoology. So as you know, insects is actually an animal, and zoology is actually the study of animal. So zoology is actually a branch of biology. And of course, you can subdivide them in a more precise manner up to the point of urban entomology, where I specialize in. So insects are actually animals with 6 legs or 3 pairs of legs. So when you see insects, or when you look at an animal, if they do not have 6 pairs of legs, they are not insects, okay? And then 1 pair of antennae, and then of course 3 body parts. They need to have the head, the thorax, and the abdomen. So let me test within the audience to see your understanding. So if I were to show you this, which one of these are insects? Is this an insect? Nope. Okay, why? Because they are many legs. In fact, there is a centipede. Okay, each segment, they have 1 pair of legs. Insect can only have 6 legs. What about this? Okay, this is also not an insect. This is a millipede. What about this? Okay, that is a tick. So how many pairs of legs? 4 pairs of legs, 8 legs, okay? What about this? What about this? That is a spider. Is spider an insect? No. Spider is not an insect either, okay? So as you can see here, also 8 legs, okay? And then what about this? Mite. This is a mite, and mite also have 8 legs. They are not insect either. Now what about this? That is a stick insect, okay? So they have 6 legs. Now, obviously, many of you knew that insects looks more like this because they are closely associated with you in your homes, right? These are insects that you find in your homes, and majority of them are pests. But today, I'm not just going to talk about pests, but I'm also going to talk about beneficial side of insects. In fact, insects also inspire many things, okay? So, welcome to the wonderful world of insects. Now, mind you, these are not model. These are the real insects. Beautiful, right? Yeah, especially this one. See, this tree hopper, look at this. Yeah, they even, have this structure that looks like a sting, but it is not. Why is that so? Because they want to prevent predator from coming close to them. So when predators see all these that looks like eyes, obviously, predator will stay away. And then these are antlion. You have also insects. These are weevil, where they have this protrude mouthpart, and so on. So, if, back long time ago, if Noah decided not to bring termites along, obviously today we do not have an issue with termites. Okay? So, now, when it comes to insects, okay, insects is probably the most diverse species of all. Insect has the most diverse species of all. So estimated some 1.5 million, okay, right now has been described, but we are estimating there are probably between 3 to 80 million insects. So there are a lot more that has not been discovered. Okay, when I was a professor in Malaysia, it is so easy to discover a new species. In fact, I can name my student one after another. When I discover it, I name, okay, you have been working really hard, I can name it after you, and so on. Yeah. So, but insects are so abundant. When we talk about insects, okay, they are like 200 million per person. So based on the number of people in the world, we are looking at per person with a ratio of 200 million insects to 1 person, okay? So they are actually intimately associated with our survival. Okay, I'm going to show you why am I saying so. So first of all, let me talk about the negative sides of insects. Okay, where majority of them knew that insects are actually pests. So first of all, they eat our crops. Okay, now why is this important? Because many of the food that's supposed to be fed to mankind are actually destroyed by insects. Okay, if you more so when you look at the top 5 agriculture states in the US, okay, California is on the top. California, in fact, is the #1 agriculture state in the US. It contributes some $54.4 billion each year. And that equals to 12.5% of the entire gross receipt of the farms. And that's huge, okay? But you can have situation where insects could come and destroy the crop completely. We are pretty lucky in a way where we do not see such situation. But if you go to the Middle East, if you go to Central Asia, this can be a major problem. Okay, I'm talking about locust plague. I'm sure if you read the Bible, in biblical history, there has been occurrence of locust plague. Okay, so what this means is there are hundreds of millions of locusts that will fly and travel hundreds of miles, and each time they reach a farm, they start eating everything. Okay, and you can find that a single swarm, okay, can consist up to 150 million locusts. Okay, now how does that look like if you were to be in the middle of a locust swarm? It looks like this. Okay, it looks like this, and just imagine you have the locusts just get into a farm, it just eats up everything. Okay, and then it move to the next farm, and it just not just traveling within the farm, it actually travel across different countries as well. Okay, now locusts are the bigger size of the grasshopper. It looks about this. Okay, in terms of size, it's about this size. I love locusts. Okay, why? Because if you catch like 2 locusts, you can have a good protein source for that evening. Okay, so these are countries that are affected. In fact, back in the year 2018 up until 2020, these are a number of countries that were affected by the locusts. Now, they also attack livestock as well as also our pets. Okay, so as you can see, many different types of flies they can actually attack. So they will lay eggs on the wounds, and then the wounds would hatch, the maggots would go in and start eating the flesh. Okay? And of course, those who keep pets, such as cats and dogs, you will know that cat fleas and dog fleas is a problem. So obviously, you would visit the vet, and these days, there are some tablets that you can feed your dogs and cats, which of course, they can get rid of the flea. But that's, of course, these are all made possible because of the research done by entomologists. So they also attack our homes. Okay, for example, your house can be attacked by termites. Okay, termites is huge in California. And you obviously have seen people tenting the house, right? Yeah, that is because of drywood termites. These are subterranean termites. So they come in millions. They can destroy whatever wood that you have in the house, including your house. Okay, so termites are a major problem. But what about those of you who go on vacation? Okay, you go on vacation, you stay in an Airbnb, you get bed bugs. Okay, these are bed bugs. So this is actually taken from an Airbnb. Okay, taken from an Airbnb. And you could see this up here. I'm not sure whether I can make it move. Let's see. Yeah, I can make it move. So look at these. These are all well-fed already, right? They're all with blood. And if you decided that you want to pop them off, and bloods will be all over your hand, okay? And this, but probably by far, is my favorite insects, cockroach, okay? So cockroach invade our homes. And obviously, they are a big problem everywhere around the world, okay? So there are, of course, different species of cockroach. The one that you saw there is actually the Madagascar hissing cockroach. They are not pests, but they are pet, okay? We keep them as pet, yeah. So, but when you have pests, okay, they breed real quick. So if a Madagascar hissing cockroach escape, let's say in this church, that's fine. They will not be a pest. You can wait 100 years, they will still not be a pest because they breed very, very slow. But when you have German cockroach, okay, all you need is just a pair of female that has mated. All you need is that. Within a year, okay, as you are singing up there, you can have cockroaches running across all over, okay? What about flies, okay? So it is a problem, very much a problem in the tropics. We do see flies in Southern California too, especially in the summer, okay? But it is, because the environment is drier, it's not so much of a problem, but it is a huge problem in the wetter part, or the part with more humidity, all right? So this is actually, by the way, you can see some flies and some even bees attracted to the watermelon because of the sugar. So they also feed on our clothes, yeah, mind you, okay? So these are cloth moth, okay, cloth moths, and they are loft moths, small, but I have this opportunity to work on a project in Pasadena, this Victorian homes that is really badly infested by cloth moths. And the reason for that is because the owner actually collect antique rug from Persia. And each of these rug could cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. And she got panicked when the house got infested by cloth moths. So they, of course, spread pathogens causing diseases. We knew very well about plague, okay? So estimated 75 to 200 million people actually died during the Black Death. So you talk about COVID, wait until you read about Black Death. Yeah. So 75 to 200 million people actually died during the Black Death between 1300. It's just about a short period, okay? And a lot of people actually died. So what is the cause of Black Death? It's actually a flea known as the Oriental rat flea that actually infests or found on the rats itself. So a lot of people thought that Black Death is associated with rats. Not true. It is actually the Oriental rat flea, yeah, that is on the body of the rat. So it's scary, okay? When we talk about Black Death, we still have plague. So today we are looking at 1,000 to 3,000 cases a year, okay? But it is still a problem, okay? Awaiting to happen. Who knows when? There are also black flies, okay? Black flies, these are a very small fly that breed on fast-moving water, and they cause river blindness, okay? They cause river blindness. Thank God we do not have river blindness here, okay? But it is a major problem in many tropical countries, especially in Africa. What about this? Yeah, we have this in Southern California, okay? But those of you who had been to Alaska during summer, okay, you would know that mosquito, it is a big issue. Why? Because they call the state bird in Alaska that is mosquito. So mosquito is actually the state bird in Alaska. Yeah. Mosquito are ferocious in Alaska, okay, especially during summertime. In fact, mosquito is the world's deadliest animal. Now, you may not know. You thought it's shark. You thought it's snake. No. Mosquito kill more people than any other species in this world. Of course, we talk about diseases, germs and all that, that's a different issue. But when we talk about animals, this is number one, followed by human. Yeah, followed by human. Okay? Mosquitoes are very pretty. Yeah, looks like this, especially after a blood meal. So this is actually a Anopheles mosquito. They cause malaria. And obviously, they would take blood. Okay? They would take blood from people, and during the process of sucking blood, they actually make an exchange, okay? So it's kind of mutual. They take your blood, they also give you back something, and that's, of course, usually the pathogens, okay? So malaria is a big problem. It's still a big problem around the world. It's transmitted by this mosquito known as Anopheles, okay? But we also have other issues. For example, filariasis, okay? And filariasis is actually also known as lymphatic filariasis. Still, there are some, 800 million people in 52 countries, okay, that has filariasis. This is actually the highest in the New World. It's no more an old world problem. It is the New World problem, but not in the US, but more of a Central and South American problem. Okay, filariasis, the problem is actually a worm. Okay, it's actually a worm that is in the mosquito, and when mosquito bite you, they inject the worm into your body. Okay, and then the worms start growing, and then of course it blocks your lymph node, and so on, and subsequently, you get this enlargement of your limb. Okay, so when I was a student, okay, in Penang, I still visit some of these filariasis patients to do interview as part of my medical entomology project. Okay, so most of them suffered through their entire life. They cannot travel at all, because just imagine one leg, it's about 10 times the other leg size. So how do you travel? And once you had it, there is no cure. Okay, it's going to stay with you for the rest of your life. West Nile virus, okay? West Nile virus, it is here in California, and usually you tend to see dead birds. That is an indication that potentially there may be West Nile hanging around, okay? But of course, from time to time, it can get transmitted to human as well. Dengue, it's a new big problem, okay? So when a patient start having blood oozing out, okay, from different locations, for example, ear, eyes, nose, that is almost, you can say that basically there is no hope, just a matter of time, okay? So dengue is a problem in many parts of the world, including here in the US, okay? Zika, so a few years ago, you obviously have heard about Zika. It is also transmitted by Aedes mosquito, and those patients or babies, with pregnant mothers who actually had Zika, they may have a child that will born with an enlarged head, okay? No, a smaller head compared with a normal child. And that is what we call microcephaly. So there are also insects that sting, bite, and can kill us. Okay, red imported fire ant is here in California. They are abundant, so accidentally when you walk and you accidentally step on a fire ant mound, they would come out and start stinging you. Multiple sting. We are talking not just one or two sting, we are talking about hundreds of sting. And then in no time, you develop this. Okay, very rarely people would die of fire ant sting, obviously. So that is the bad part about insect. Let us talk about the positive side. Okay, so the beneficial side, there are many too, okay? When we talk about products such as honey, wax, silk, dye, these are all made, basically because of insects that we have these products. So honey is not from tree, okay, by the way, okay? If you have no bees, you have no honey. Or honey is not referring to your other half, okay? So beeswax candles, these are also made of insects, obviously from beeswax. And some people who are allergic to the synthetic form of lipsticks, there are also people who actually use beeswax with some dye, and then can apply, and you actually have this natural form of lipsticks. Silk, okay? Silk is one of the most expensive fabric, okay? And they are natural. Okay, silks are not polyester, okay? You can actually make, synthetic form of fabric that looks like silk, but a real silk, it's very different, okay? You can actually burn it, try to, light fire over it, you will find that it would be very hard to burn, okay, unlike polyester. Next would be the role of insects. So without insects, human would not live, okay? There are so much of our food, especially vegetables, that are actually helped and basically assisted by insects because of their pollination role. Okay, so They're very crucial when it comes to production of fruits and vegetables. No insects, no fruits. Okay, we're talking about honeybee, bumblebees, native bees, but not just limited to bees. Butterfly also plays a role in pollination. Flies, the one that we hate, also plays a role in pollination. In fact, in Borneo, cockroaches are also involved in pollination. Okay, so, and the shape of the flower, the color, the odor that is released by the plant itself will attract different types of pollinators. So, now for those of you who say, oh, you know, insects are bad, you know, I would not eat anything about insects. Let me tell you, if you are someone who actually take fig, do you take fig? Do you know what fig is? Fruits, fig. Yeah, you obviously have actually ingested some insects too. Okay, I'm talking about fig. Now why? I'm going to share a short video and you will understand why, okay, in a short while. All right, let's move on.
You'll find a fig tree living in symbiosis with an outlandish wasp. One who is willing to sacrifice her own life to assure the survival of her offspring. Competing for sunlight in the dense rainforest, the strangler fig takes advantage of other trees to find its way up and exploit the pole position in the canopy to reproduce. But for this, it depends on a bizarre creature that you might have never even heard of, the fig wasp. This minuscule insect is just around 2 millimeters long. The wasp's life cycle is deeply intertwined with the fig. She knows that the only way to get into the fruit is through a tiny hole on the bottom. She has to sacrifice her wings in order to get through the tight nozzle. But she won't mind, as she knows that she'll never fly again. Once inside, the strangler fig shuts the entrance to its fruit. Thus, the final act of the wasp's life is to lay her eggs in the cavity. After that, she will die in there. Over time, the flowers and the wasp eggs develop, and the fig transforms into a mature fruit. From the eggs, however, male wasps emerge first. They have no wings, as they won't need them during their short lives. Their life's purpose is limited to 2 goals only. The first one is to mate with the females. They do this by biting their way in and inseminating the younger, still not fully developed females. As soon as they've completed their first task, they tackle their second and last job, digging away out of the fruit. But this escape route is not meant for themselves. Without wings, the male wasps have no chance of survival on the outside. Their final hours are numbered. Inside, their sisters now emerge. Already fertilized, they head directly for the exit, being brushed with pollen on their way. With ready-made tunnels dug by the now dead males, the females have an easy way out, so the pollen remains glued to their bodies. Their lives won't be that much longer either. They can live for about 2 days only. But these 2 days should be enough to find another strangler fig ready to receive them. The minuscule wasps are in fact top-performing creatures. They can fly up to 50 kilometers above the canopy. Drawn in by the scent of receptive figs, they will find...
So, yeah, if you have been taking figs, they are actually dead insects inside that you actually eaten together, okay, for your information. And mind you, this is a 75 million years association. Okay, this is not something that happens overnight. And the fruits, you will not get figs, without the insect itself. Okay, so fig swabs is actually extremely important. And there have been some talking too, because of climate change, many of these swabs are not doing really well. And you may not, in 100 years' time, if we still have 100 years, the earth still have 100 years, you may not even have the opportunity to actually eat fig anymore. So, so this is actually a very close association. Now, other uses of insects, food for vertebrates. Now, I do not want to get entangled whether you can actually eat insects or not, okay? But they are actually very important aspect in our food chain. Now, without insects, many of the other animals would not survive either, all right? So what I'm going to talk about here is let's eat insects, okay? Now those of you who think that, I hate insects, I would never eat insects. Now, let me tell you, USDA estimates every single person in the US, okay, probably more in other countries, eat about 1.5 pounds of insects. Now, they are not insects as like full. You are probably ingesting insect legs, insect wings, if you are taking cereal in the morning. Okay, when you accumulate that number up, that's about 1.5 pounds per person per year. So, don't tell me you're not eating insects, you are accidentally eating it too. Okay? I want to show you this, some of the different culture that are taking insects. So, one of the interesting one in Escamole. Okay, this is what they call Mexican caviar. Okay, so what do they eat? They have ant larvae inside. Okay, so you can see that escamole is sauteed with herbs and also diced onion. Really delicious. Okay, a plate of 1,000 larvae costs about $20. All right, but not just in Mexico. Okay, if you go to other parts of the world, for example, you go to Thailand. Okay, Thailand also have their version of escamole. And this is actually a Thai salad, all right? So they take weaver ants, okay, weaver ants, eggs, and larvae, and of course, they mix and make it into a salad. Yeah, really nice, sour. You do not need lemon at all because the weaver ants, eggs, and larvae are already sourish. Yeah, and of course, if you don't like this, you can have other variety, especially I know that my daughter don't like to see the eyes of the insect when they eat it. Just remove the eyes, okay? There are many different types of insects that you can have or try in Thailand. Now, this is not unique to Southeast Asia. If you go to different parts of China, you can have it too. This is in Yunnan, okay? This is in Yunnan. You can go to Japan, okay? You can even buy canned insect food. In fact, I have a stash of some of these canned insect food along, in my office. So whenever I have really good student, I would reward them with a can. Now, it is not only Chinese or Japanese, the Koreans are also eating it. Okay, so these are silkworm pupae that the Koreans are eating. And of course, I'm not sure about this generation, but one generation before, if you go to a theme park with your parents, the parents will buy, kind of like, a school of this silkworm pupae, okay, if you behave, and they will enjoy it. And of course, I have a Korean student, and when he was sick, when you are sick, lying down on the bed, the mother will cook the silkworm pupae with porridge, and you can eat it, and then you will be well the next day. Silkworm pupae are also in the form of snacks. You can buy this in Thailand. So just go to a 7-Eleven, you can pick them up. It's readily available. Now, what I'm going to show you is what I did to my students, okay, when I was in Malaysia. So we also try using cockroaches as human food, okay? So obviously, when I first started, I do not have a place that I could cook, right? So I brought the student home when my wife is not around and use her wok, okay? She would remember this wok. So we don't use the smelly American cockroach. We use lobster cockroach. Now, the name of the cockroach is called lobster cockroach. It does not sting, okay? There is no odor at all. So what we do is we kind of mix them with flour, and of course, we deep fry them, and comes out, really nice, right? And I told my student every single person need to try it. Some love it, some hated it. And I have students who have different expression. And I have a student who told me, well, I don't mind trying it again, but please make it drier next time because the one that I try is a bit juicy. Okay, now, red palm weaver. Now, red palm weaver is a major problem. It's a major problem here in California. It is an invasive species that attack many of the palm trees right now, okay? But it is not a problem in Malaysia and Southeast Asia. Why? Because people actually eat it up to the point that it's no longer a pest. Okay? So this is red palm weaver. Okay? And they look pretty big, about the size of our thumb. Okay? And I had tried it before. It's really, really good. Of course, I know that most of you, do not drink, okay? But it goes really well with whiskey for the information. Now, insects' food, it's not just in the form where you can actually see the eyes of the insects. They are also available now in different forms, okay? For example, you can now buy a cockroach, brownies that is using cricket's powder, okay? So they use the cricket, they dry it up, they grind into powder. That is, the thing that they incorporated, okay? So they look something like this. Yeah, it tastes good. Obviously, if you want to inculcate insect culture and you do not want to be the first to start with your pet first. There are now pet food, okay? There are now pet food available where you can actually, instead of, using beef to feed your dogs, use cricket, okay? And I'm sure your dog will be grateful because they are saving the earth as well. Now, so we also want to talk about good insects eating bad insects. And this is what we call biological control, okay? So good insect eating bad insect. So this is a ladybird beetle. They are eating the aphids here, as you can see, all right? And of course, yeah, they have sound too. Nice, right? Yeah. So, but if you are not into agriculture, you say that, how do I solve my cockroach problem at home? Well, think about this. Why don't you keep a praying mantis at home? Okay? And they can eat insect real quick. But is this a solution? So would you hire or would you buy like 10 praying mantis and keep it around your house? And then whenever there is a cockroach, a praying mantis will go for it. Would you do that? Unfortunately, many of us would not. And that's the reason why biological control can never be successful in our house or in the urban environment, okay? Now, they are also important in the food chain, okay? For example, they are also involved in nutrient recycling. So a lot of, material that are waste, such as waste and, fallen trees, dead leaves all over, insects are actually helping to recycle them so that they could basically goes back, to the environment and use back to the carbon, okay, to change it into another carbon form. So there are many different types. For example, this is a dung beetle, okay? Dung beetle essentially plays a very important role in recycling animal materials, okay? You have these termite mounds, for example. They are also playing major role in recycling. Same thing with roaches in the tropical rainforest. Okay, they are basically garbage collector in the terrestrial ecosystem. So they are also recycling dead plants and so on. So insects actually has a lot of benefits. The one that we knew are the one that we see them as pests. But pests is actually a small fraction of the entire insect world. Okay? So they are, of course, also used in biological studies, for example, genetics. Drosophila, which is a fruit fly, are used very widely in genetic studies. And that basically help today in cancer research and many of the other medical purposes. Okay, so what about medical use? Okay, for your information, this next slide, okay, if you have a weak heart, okay, watch it with care, okay? So, maggot therapy, or we call it maggot debridement, it's one of the very important field today in the treatment of people with chronic diabetes, okay? So when they have gangrene, there are lots of dead tissue. In order not to eventually amputate that body part, you can actually seek the help of maggots or flies that will eat up the dead tissues. And in return, and you will not need, in the end, okay, to amputate that limb. Okay, so this is what happened. Okay, so after maggot therapy, eventually you see it heal. Okay, so I know that there are many hospitals in the US today that specialize in maggot therapy, and this is actually one of the big area now, a growing area. I even have a former friend, a former colleague in pest management industry who decided to go full swing into maggot therapy, and now he is providing maggots to different hospitals in Southeast Asia, just overnight becoming a millionaire. Okay, that is one big area, that people are venturing in. So, what you do is when you have really, this lots of dead tissue, all you need is just release the maggot. So maggot will start eating up the dead tissues, and after that, you will leave that whole area clean, and from there on, you can proceed with the treatment. Now, insects are also source for inspiration, especially in popular culture, in arts, in music, in sciences, okay? So I'm going to show you the list of songs that are insect-related. And for those of you who would like to try and listen, if you have Spotify or you have Apple Music, you can try it. Okay, these are a list of songs. Nice song, okay? James Brown, I have ants in my pen. Okay, so this one is good. Yeah, yes. Mosquito, okay? And weasel, all my friends are insects. So the one I highlighted are the more modern ones. And the one that I actually put is highly recommended. You can try to listen to it. It's nice. Okay? But of course, they are also source for arts. Okay? For example, this particular one. Okay? So this is actually a spider. Obviously, spider is not an insect, right? I purposely put it there. Okay? Now, spider is not an insect. I put it again, but there are a lot of B-list movies that are inspired because of insects. So all of them are portraying insect as some monster, which actually a lot of the storyline make no sense at all. So you have this Wasp Woman, okay? These are all, B-list type of movie, all right? They are also used in stems, for example, okay? So I got this sticker, yeah. Where is she? Oh, okay. Thank you so much. Okay, so they are also used in stems, and these are, of course, source of inspiration. Okay, so that is the part on the an introduction to entomology. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to talk about insects' reproductive behavior. So are you still okay? Do you need to take a break? All right. So let us talk about sex. Yeah. No, in insects, okay. All right. So first we talk about reproduction in insects, okay? So there are two ways insect could reproduce. The first is what we call asexual method, or parthenogenesis. There is no need for mating. They can keep reproducing. And I'm going to show you this particular insect known as aphids. For those of you who actually have plants in your house, especially flowers, roses, and all that, I'm very sure you have seen aphids before. They are tiny, usually under the leaf or over the leaf. And once you have aphids, big trouble. Okay, within a week, you can see that the entire plant is full of aphids. Now, sometimes you are wondering, how do they do it? Well, they do it because they do not need to mate in order to reproduce. So let me show you.
Got a plant? There's probably an aphid for that. They're a nightmare for anyone growing veggies. There are thousands of types with all kinds of looks. And they seem to pop up overnight. Before you know it, they're everywhere. Ugh. They pierce leaves and stems with their stylet and suck out sugary sap, leaving the plant yellow and wilted. While they're not particularly fast or well-armored, aphids are highly skilled at one thing: making babies. Most of the time, they give birth to live young instead of laying eggs. That's different from most other insects. Aw, she's got her mother's eyes. An aphid mom can push out 5 or 6 nymphs a day, sometimes more. And she doesn't need to find a mate to do it. Most of the time, aphids just clone themselves. You can see the eyes of her clones growing inside her. And here's the really wild part. Her babies are born already pregnant. In a week or two, they'll start giving birth to clones of their own. That's why it only takes a single aphid to infest your greenhouse or garden. When the buffet starts getting crowded and it looks like their food might run out, aphids switch gears. They produce a different kind of clone. See those light gray shoulder pads on the one on the right? They unfurl into wings. Yep, winged clones called alates. They look different, but they're still genetically identical to their mothers. When they're ready, the alates take to the air to search out new plants to colonize.
So that's aphid. So that's why when you have aphids, it's very, very hard to control. Okay? Now, we're going to talk about another form of reproduction, and that is the one that most of us are familiar, and that is sexual reproduction or mating. Okay? So just like any other sexual reproduction, you need a male and a female, okay, in order to make it happen. All right? So what is the advantage of asexual or parthenogenesis, okay, where you only have female only? So with that, actually, they have this greater reproductive potential. They have reduced risk of finding mates, because each time when you try to find mates, there is always the risk of being predated by any other animal or predator. But the disadvantage is it also causes a reduction in the gene, okay, in the gene within the gene pool. Okay, so it will lead to the species becoming weaker and weaker. The advantage of sexual mating would be you have this really diverse gene pool, which is good. Okay, and that's why in the ancient days, in Malaya, where people within the same village keep getting married, between each other, and eventually it will lead to the kids becoming not smarter and less smarter and less smarter and less smarter. And that's why genetic pool diversity is extremely important. The disadvantage, of course, is the risk of finding the mates, but insect has a way to overcome it. So the first thing when it comes to reproductive behavior is locating a mate. And you need to sync the time and the space, okay? And so how do they do it? They have to find ways to be able to find them, their mate. And first is, of course, smell. Insects actually use smell to locate their mates. They also use the form of pheromones, which is a sex pheromone that is involved in finding the mates. Sometimes they use sound too, okay, where the male would make sound and the females will be attracted to them. So I'm going to give example in a short while, okay? So let me show you this particular one.
Ever notice how a quiet summer evening is actually pretty noisy? It's mostly these guys. Crickets clearly have a lot to say. That familiar, persistent chirp is an advertisement meant to get the attention of her. It's his mating call. So, how is he actually making the sound? Check this out. On the underside of his wings, there's this little line of tiny microscopic teeth all in a row. It's called the file. His wings also have a hard edge, right here, called the scraper. When he rubs his wings together, the scraper on the bottom wing grates across all those teeth on the top wing. Researchers call it stridulation. Here it is slowed down.
See that? So basically, you have the file and then you are scraping it across.
His wing strokes happen faster than your eye can see. For this species, about 8 wing strokes in a single chirp. But not every chirp has amorous intentions. If a male runs into another male, he also has an angry-sounding rivalry call.
Okay, let's move on. So you can also have wing beating or buzzing sound. This is in cicada. So when you have cicada, they are actually vibrating, and this is actually the sound that you get from cicada. So in summertime in California, we don't get this as much as if you go to the Midwest or even some parts of, for example, North Asia like Japan and China. And cicada can be extremely noisy. That's because of the vibration. So there are also visual involved, where some of the insects with better eyesight could actually see their mates. Okay, so a good example is water strider. Okay, water strider actually, when they are in the pond, they can actually see the female, or the males could actually see the female, or the female could actually see the male. Besides that, dragonfly and damselfly also have good eyesight. There are some other insects that actually use eyesight, but to detect some other things besides not just the mate, but detect the lights produced by the insects. And that is firefly. So fireflies are very unique because they could produce light. Okay, so how do they do that? And how do they find their mate? Okay, with lights.
In southern Ontario, the setting sun triggers a well-known summer ritual: the emergence of fireflies. These are female fireflies. They've just emerged in their adult form. The females are well positioned to watch the big show that's about to get underway. They only have a few weeks to live and have one thing on their mind: finding Mr. Right. The flashing lights of thousands of male fireflies light up the dusk. They are hoping to impress their female audience.
So, to cut the story short or the video short, how they blink and the frequency of the blinking, there are messages sending out. So when they blink in a certain manner, that means that this is actually a male attracting the female. And the female could actually also blink in a certain manner to attract the male. And then they will fly it over. So that's how they communicate, okay, using the power of light. Now, they are also, of course, mating swarm. So mating swarms in human, okay, is what we call party. Okay, in human is what we call party. So human goes to party to find their mates, insect also. But how do the insect swarm? Essentially, they swarm like this. So you are talking about hundreds of thousands of insects. This is an insect party called swarm. Okay, so this is Mitch swarm, where they will be like that. They will fly, and then they will find their mates. So upon finding their mates, of course, they will mate, and then they will produce, go to somewhere, and then lay eggs, and move on. So these are large males, number of males and females that come together. I'm going to share with you this swarm of this beautiful insect known as mayfly. The reason why they are called mayfly is because normally the swarm happens during Maytime, or the emergence of mayflies are usually during May. All right? So mayflies are so short-lived, they only live for a day, 24 hours, upon emergence to become adult. The immature stage live in water, live for a long time, but upon becoming adult, there's only one objective: mate, lay eggs, die. And they only live for 24 hours. So have to complete everything within 24 hours. So the joke is, they don't even need to think about retirement plan. Okay? They don't even need to think about retirement plan at all. Now, mayfly swarms can be really scary, okay? That looks like this. So you can get the next day, your entire car, filled with mayfly, okay? Dead mayflies, of course, okay? But I'm going to share one video very quickly about a swarm of mayfly that happened in Iowa, okay? So this is a gas station, okay, where they will be attracted to the light because so when they swarm, they will get attracted to the light, and that's where they find their mates. Okay? So you can see this entire gas station, they're probably closed for the day. Right? So, yep, the USPS, yep. So termites also swarm, okay? Termites also swarm, and then that's how termites will find their mates. So they would go up, they swarm, they found, the male and female found their mates, and then subsequently they will drop down, and then they will move on, okay? But unfortunately, many of the swarming of termites sometimes get picked up by the lizard, or geckos. But what happened is, under, successful swarming, so the female would move in front, the males would follow from behind. And then they will find a place, okay, where they go in, they mate, and then they lay eggs, and then they seal up, and they start a new colony. And that's how it works, okay? And that's why when you see swarming termites, usually that happens from March onwards until August. Here in Southern California, that means that nearby your house, there is a termite nest, okay, ready to reinfest, okay? So insects are just like human too, They have this, what we call courtship behavior. So courtship behavior insects are, of course, very unique. Why I'm saying so is because sometimes courtship behavior can also be extremely dangerous, okay? At least until they mate, all right? So, and they have this visual display mostly by males. You know, for example, dragonfly. There are also some of these that we talked before, the acoustic, you know, they produce the sound in order to attract the females. And of course, the cicada sound as well, okay? So, pheromones are involved. For example, moths are usually releasing pheromone. So in human, we call them perfume, okay? We call them perfume. But in insect, we call them pheromone. Essentially, this is probably an older example. Probably young people do not know Chanel number 5. But so what happened is the female would release the pheromone and it produced this bloom, and then the males could be attracted to the pheromone, and that's how they find the females. Because essentially, this pheromone could attract a male from 3 miles away. That's how powerful it is. And all they need is a small amount in picomole of pheromone to attract the male. Now, in insect, size matters, okay, in a positive and negative ways. So I'm going to show you another video, okay?
Darwin stag beetle. He's scaling a tree in the hope of finding a female. Huge antler-like just for decoration. Not pursuit of a possible female. Competition isn't welcome on this bark battleground. The stag beetle has some dirty tricks to ensure he gets ahead of the game. For his signature move, he needs a good grip under his opponent's wings. And using all his strength, he heaves his rival off the tree. It's a 50-foot fall, but beetle armor is pretty resilient. The winner climbs on. Until finally, there she is. For all his efforts, she doesn't seem interested. But he's not taking no for an answer. With giant jaws like these, he doesn't need to win her over. He simply pins her down. Success at last. But in the heat of the moment, he makes a foolish mistake. His newfound love is quite literally dumped.
So, yeah, so in insect world, okay, size matters. Well, I can say that too, you know, in humans world too. Yeah, size matter a lot actually, and that is how actually many of the bigger males are more successful, and female would prefer bigger males too, because then they ensure that, you know, the gene that they obtain and to pass on to the offspring is actually a better gene, because to them bigger means stronger. Okay, so but how do they pass on? So once you have you found your mates and all that, then you need to pass on the sperm over to the female. So there are many ways to pass on that. So one is what we call spermatophore. Okay, so these are methods of passing the sperm over. So I'm going to talk from very simple method to very complex method. So the simple one is they don't even meet with one another. So the male just deposit the spermatophore at one location, and then later the female just pick it up whenever she need to. So they don't even meet at all. And those happen actually in more primitive insects. For example, springtail. Now, springtail are very unique. So they would put their sperm, on the soil like this, and then the female would then come and pick it up. When she think that, oh, this looks good, okay, then she will pick it up. That's it. Okay, but it is not a good way in a manner. Okay, so sometimes the female will also decide whether that is the right male or not, and in that moment, then she would have to evaluate. Okay, so the males will have to do something in order to win her over. And let me just show you this particular video very quickly.
Springtail is bigger than a male, and she prefers a partner who can give her a sustained head-to-head push. Other males are eager to try their luck, but butting her sides won't get them anywhere. She seems unimpressed by any of them, but one is determined to stay as her dance partner. She simply can't get rid of him. He confidently signals victory with a couple of fancy twirls. Then he deposits a droplet of sperm onto the leaf, and she graciously takes it on board.
So, young man, persistent is everything. So, this is how it does, okay? So they deposit the spermatophore, and then in the end, the female will pick it up, okay? So now next is, of course, there are also other insects that does the same, but not meeting one another, so they just put it and then get picked up by the other insects. The next one would be copulation, where the male will insert the spermatophore into the female. And they use, of course, many means. In the insect world, we call them eddigers. In the human world, we call them penis. Okay, so that is what we call the lock and key hypothesis. So it has to fit. So two different species of insect, they will not fit one another. Okay, so eddigers would be to basically allow the insertion of the sperm into the female. Okay, but there are also some very bizarre behavior. Okay, so during courtship, in order to win the female over, some of the males would go out and give out what we call nuptial gift. Now, what exactly is nuptial gift? So in modern days, this is our nuptial gift. Okay, this is our nuptial gift. But in the case of course, humans also use this too, right? That's nuptial gift. But in the case of some insects, the nuptial gift is in the form of food. And what the insect would do is they will wrap, the food over and over until they make it kind of big, and then they pass it to the female. So the duration of mating is related to the size of the gift. So if the gift is kind of small, right? The female, after a while, will get bored, and then they will fly away. So the mating would not happen for a long time. But nuptial gift is very unique because some males will cheat, where there are no food inside, but they will wrap it up, and then they will pass it to the female. So female will spend time opening it up. But during that time when she's opening it up, he would mate with the female. And then upon unravel it, nothing. But too late. Okay, so that happened, okay, in insects. So a good one is called daggerfly. Daggerfly actually do a nuptial gift, when it comes to mating. So I'm not going to show the video, but there are also other insects that actually give out what we call attractive chemical. So we call them candy, in human terms. Okay. So a good example is cockroach. So when cockroach mate, okay, so first they will do antennal sparring. So they will spar to ensure that that's the right one. And after that, you would find that the female would turn to this position, and then the male would come, okay? So, the female would come, and then coming to the male. So this is the female, this is the male. And what happened at this part was the male will raise the wing, and then they will secrete some secretion. Now, this secretion in cockroach is actually sugar, sweet. So it contains glucose, it contains sucrose, so where the female would eat on that secretion, okay? I know some males already thinking something else, okay? Naughty boy. Now, so what happened is afterwards, it will use the opportunity to copulate with the females, all right? So there are also insects that are a bit fierce or a bit scary, and that is known as male cannibalism. So during the time of mating, the male actually get killed. Okay, I'm talking about praying mantis. Okay, so what happened is you have the female, you have the male at the back. So after that, during the mating time, in order to ensure that the sperm continue to flow into the female will eat up the head. Yeah, so the male die afterwards. Yeah, so the male can only mate with one female, and that's it. Yeah, but the female gets to mate with multiple males, in this sense. Okay, so when it comes to praying mantis, head count is not a good idea. Okay, head count is not a good idea. Now, so as I mentioned, that allows them to release the sperm and to make sure that they do not have any inhibition when it comes to mating. Okay, to remove the head. So that is providing nutrition to the females to make more eggs, and of course also providing nutrition to the offspring. But there are also some interesting behavior, okay, where the males actually pass on some nutrient to the female. Have you ever seen moth landing on your shoes before? If you have seen that, that means that the moth is actually taking salt from your shoe. As you know, when we wear shoes, we sweat, right? So they are actually present of salt in the shoes. And moth would use that opportunity, or butterfly would use that opportunity to take salt from there. Okay? And why do they do that? Because salt is a form of, candy, okay, to the females. Okay, so this is an example in Malaysia where, these butterfly, okay, known as the birdwing, they are actually feeding on puddle of water in order to get the salt. So this would increase the egg production, okay, increase the female lifespan, and so on. I need to quick, because I'm trying to finish it. So water strider, they have this very specialized leg where they will collapse on the female during mating so that female cannot escape. These are like modified leg, okay? They have been modified for that purpose. But there are also some other insects that are a bit, I would say, fierce, where they are spine in the penis. So why? Is because when they mate with the female, this spine would basically destroy the sexual opening of the female, so that the next male would not be able to mate with that female. Yeah. So, and that is prevalent in some of the beetle where they have spine. Okay, where they have spine. Okay, so another one is unique, and this is actually some bizarre mating behavior. It's in bedbugs. Okay, we talked about bedbugs just now as a pest, but in bedbugs, the female do not have sexual opening. So male essentially has to use its penis, which is like a needle that will pierce through the female body, pierce through the female body, and then ejaculate in inside the body. And then after that, job done. But with this behavior, after mating, the female became wounded and died even faster. So the lifespan of mated female in bedbugs are much, much shorter than the one that are virgin. Yeah, that's how it happens. So this is the penis of bedbug. It looks like a needle, and it can pierce through really hard. And then, of course, we talk about dragonfly. Now, dragonfly is very unique too. Why is that so? Is because when it comes to dragonfly or Dempsey fly, so when the male mate with the female, the male would first insert the penis and scrape off whatever sperm that is inside the body of the female. So they do not want the sperm from the previous male to be in there. Okay? So how do they do it? Okay, how do they do it? Well, they have some methods to do it. So their penis will go in and then scrape everything off first before they ejaculate. And that is what we call the sperm competition. Okay, because it's very common in dragonfly and Dempsey fly where multiple matings happen. Okay, I think I'm going to stop here since it's 6:30 now. So it has been a pleasure to lecture, but I know that, I have to rush at the very end. But if there's any question that you would like to ask, anyone? Yeah. Swarm, yeah. That's right. That's the locust plague. Yeah, so ducks can also be used in order to control locusts. The problem with any predator is they get full after eating. So just imagine if you have, let's say, human being eat cockroach. So if you have this entire hall filled with cockroaches, we get 10 human beings in here and start eating them, up to the point that you have your capacity. Once you hit, you are full, you stop feeding. And if the number of predators, it's less than the number of prey, you will never be able to control them well. And that's why biological control has its limitation. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's not genetically, but they are actually putting a bacteria inside the mosquito. So what happened is, this particular bacteria is known as Wolbachia. Okay, so they would breed mosquito by feeding Wolbachia over. Okay, so they take the food that has been laced with Wolbachia, and then the mosquito had Wolbachia. Okay, then they separate the male out from the female. Now we can separate mosquito male from the female. Okay, male mosquito usually have mustache. Female mosquito don't have it. Okay, so once they have this male mosquito separated, then they will mass release the male mosquito in the environment. And this so-called male mosquito will then mate with the female and insert and produce Wolbachia and pass on Wolbachia to the female. The eggs cannot be formed because Wolbachia will inhibit the formation of the eggs. And that is a method that they use. Now, that is a very expensive method. Millions and millions of dollars has been spent, but dengue remain very high in Singapore. Yeah, so it's always, nature always have a way to fight back. When we try to, use this approach, there are always a way to fight back. Yes? Yeah, virus. Okay. So we have to know that in human, we also have our immune system, right? So if you get bitten by one mosquito, let's say a dengue mosquito with dengue virus or West Nile, as you said, you will not get West Nile or dengue. You have to be repeatedly get bitten. Then only you could contract that. Because our body has a way to fight back. If the virus load is low, you will not contract that disease. Yeah. And also once they introduce into the virus into the body, it has to complete a cycle. So that is the period what we call incubation period. So the virus basically develop in your body before it become infective. And then the next mosquito that come and bite you would then get the virus and then pass on to the next person. And that's how the disease basically cycle. Okay. So when you get bitten, you don't actually contract the disease right away. There is an incubation period. So usually for dengue, it will be about 10 days. For West Nile, it's about 14 days. No. So once they inject, the blood in, how do you remove the blood? No. Unfortunately, it does not work that way. Yeah, the virus would have moved already throughout, So you wouldn't know where it is unless you do a blood transfusion and, which is not possible, obviously. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. So they've been saying that, okay, what happened if we kill all the mosquito in the world? Well, when you kill all the mosquito in the world, you're going to disrupt the food, the food cycle, the food chain. And then many of the other insects would die. That will affect other vertebrates that eventually would catch up with us. So all living things on earth are there for a reason. Yeah, they are there for a reason. So human beings always think that, we are superior and we always want to remove anything that we don't like. In fact, in the real natural world, there is no such thing as a pest. Pest is actually a definition given by us. Don't you think so? If that person seated next to you consistently bug you all the time, right? That person is a pest to you too. Yeah. So pest is actually a human definition, not a definition made, there by anyone. Yes. Do you have a question? Yeah. So vinegar will not kill the roaches. It's the boric acid. Okay, when you place the boric acid, along the baseboard, when the cockroach crawl through your baseboard, their body get dusted with the boric acid. Cockroach are clean animal. Yeah. You may disagree with me, but if you notice a cockroach, they constantly clean themselves. So when the body get dusted with boric acid, when they are cleaning, they accidentally ingest the boric acid. And boric acid is a stomach poison. And that's how they kill it. Yeah, but it's a very slow process. You don't need to use vinegar at all. Just use boric acid. That's sufficient. Yeah. Yeah. That's fine. Baking soda could potentially kill them too, but it is not it's not as effective as boric acid. Yeah, boric acid would be better. Yeah. So pest control solution, we can talk some other days, okay? So any other question? Yes.
So what did you call those things? You said it's not insect, but we thought it was insect.
Okay. Yeah.
So you called it animal?
Yeah, they are all animal. Yeah. In fact, animal, it's very wide, So if you go to, let's say, coral, coral are animals too. Sponge are animals. Okay, so all these worms are animals, obviously. Yeah. Spiders are animal. We classified them under this really big phylum known as arthropoda, and So within the phylum of Arthropoda, you have, of course, spiders, you have insects, you have crab. Okay, crabs is also part of it. You have shrimp, and these are all within this big phylum of Arthropoda. Centipede, millipedes, these are all within Arthropoda too. Yeah, yeah, that's a separate lecture. Yeah. Okay, all right. Thank you so much, everyone, for your kind attention.
And the Bible teaches us this world is fearfully, wonderfully made. And Bible Proverbs 6:6 said, "Go to the ant, observe its ways, and be wise." So I believe everybody here is much wiser than 1 hour ago. And thank you, Dr. Lee. And yeah, and then thank you everybody for your attention. Yes. Yeah, we will decide later. We will talk about this later. Okay, so shall we all stand and we have a closing prayer to dismiss. Dr. Chu, would you please have a word of prayer?
Our Heavenly Father, thank you so much for being with us today as we celebrated our 13th and 17th anniversary of the founding of our church. We thank you for all the blessings that you have poured upon this church and its members throughout all these years. We're so grateful and thankful for your blessings and your presence with us. Thank you for giving us this lecture this evening that we can learn about nature and your creation. May you bless this congregation. May we continue to serve you and love you and have a new life in a new year. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Okay, thank you.